Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. Welcome back to the show, Stewart.
Thank you, Jim.
You've got a big conference November 14th about LNG. What can you tell us about it?
Well, if you want to learn the full details, you can go to resourceworks.com, but let me tell you, we were looking at the recent announcement back on October 2nd that LNG Canada, Liquefied Natural Gas Canada project, is going to be built in Kitimat. It's a $40 billion project. That makes it the largest private sector investment in Canadian history. It's huge, and it's all happening inside BC. So what we asked ourselves at ResourceWorks was, well, what's the impact of all this? What's it going to mean for the economy? So we've been working with an economist from Ottawa, one of the more eminent ones in Canada, Philip Cross, has gone into the numbers. He's done a study. He's still working on it, but on November the 14th, we're doing a lunch event where the economist and some other economists will be coming out to talk about it. Where do the impacts show up? What does it mean that they're building a new pipeline to serve the LNG plant? What does it mean, all the exploration for natural gas and drilling for natural gas they have to do up in the Northeast? What does it mean for the economy? Because, as we've previously shown at ResourceWorks, it actually influences the whole economy, including in Metro Vancouver. There's lots of jobs that are touched by that. And we're going to find out more detail what that is. So it's downtown at the Fairmont Pacific Rim at noon, the noon hour on the 14th of November. And if you go to resourceworks.com, you can find out all about it. We have Brian Yu, Deputy Chief Economist of Central One, going to come and speak as part of our panel, as well as Patricia Moore, who's former one of the top economists at Scotiabank, so a very highly qualified person in economics and commodity markets. And we have Matthew Klippenstein from the BC Sustainable Energy Association. He's a big believer in electric cars, and he's going to tell us why he thinks that LNG is a very important part of how we're going to see higher adoption of electric vehicles in BC. It's unexpected, but it's a very important part of the story.
Does LNG mean that Site C was important because they're going to have power to chill all this natural gas down so they can put it on ships?
Well, for this project, the LNG Canada one, it's not so much a factor, but for other ones in future, I think its presence, the electricity created by Site C Dam in the Northeast, presence in the grid will help those that, require electrification. And I think it's a, important part of the story, where we've seen some politicians say, oh, Site C is all about giving electricity away to, foreign companies for LNG. I'm not buying that. That's really not, Site C. We're going to need a lot more electricity in general in a growing economy. More people are moving to BC. Babies are being born, and we use electricity in our lives, and we'll use more of it as we use other forms of energy less in future. So, got to have it somewhere, and it needs to be as low impact on the environment as we can make it.
Going to a different subject, the Enbridge natural gas pipeline explosion near Prince George, does that show how necessary, LNG or liquefied or just natural gas in general is? Because they're telling us now that what you would think is a minor pipeline might cause a 20% shortage over the winter in BC.
Oh, and that's tough too. It's a difficult thing. It's not what the utilities would like to be saying to their customers, because they would much rather customers get what they need to heat their homes. I think if there's anything positive in it, I'm not sure there's a lot of positive in this, but it certainly reminds us of what we take for granted. I mean, we do take for granted that you go to your living room and turn up that thermostat and up goes the heat. And that's something that some people, it sounds like, will have to or being asked to think carefully when they choose temperatures and so on. I guess it's always a good reminder because we tend to be, that plug in the wall you plug something into to charge your phone. You're not thinking about where the electricity comes from. You open your fridge or you go to the supermarket, you're maybe not thinking about where that milk comes from or where's that nice piece of salmon coming from. So anything that reminds us of it, but I don't think we want to have to do it this way through that problem. But I did talk with some people from the Enbridge company, and the utilities. They are not loving that this is a problem they're dealing with, and they're working as hard as they can. These are competent, professional people who just they have families too. They all want to get that product to where it's supposed to be.
Does BC have enough natural gas to get around it? And why is it so difficult to repair this pipeline? When you see photos, it doesn't look like the explosion took out much.
Well, the infrastructure questions are engineering ones. I think in terms of the supply, one of the marvelous things about BC natural gas is that with each passing year, we become aware of more reserves. That's how deep and rich the Montney Shale Basin is up in the northeast. And it is deep, deep beneath their feet up there around Dawson Creek, Port St. John. It's, 5 kilometers down through rock. You've got to get down there and drill down, and you get into this softer clay material that when you fracture the rock, you release the gas. That's what fracking does. And we have so much of it there. Depending on how quickly you used it, it could be maybe, I would estimate 1,000 years or 1,500 years if we just heated our homes in Canada and used natural gas as we do now in the domestic market. We could go for a long time. If we get into LNG exports in a big way, sharing natural gas with China where they desperately want to stop using as much coal in their economy. They want to get cleaner natural gas, which is a smart thing to do. We probably have at least 130 years of gas that we can both meet our own needs and help others as everyone in the world transitions to other lower forms of energy. So that's how much is there. But there's some companies. I periodically like to look at what they're telling investors, and they publish this. You go to the investor relations page of any publicly traded company, and you'll find these reports. But you'll see one quarter to the next quarter, you'll see the updates as their drilling and exploration reports come in and they update the reserves. You see that number grows and grows much faster than they take it out of the ground. They add to the known reserves, and that is just the richness of our BC natural gas reserves at work there.
What about critics who say BC's just contributing to global warming if you're sending LNG to China?
Well, the thing is that the reason China wants it, the reason that the state-owned energy companies of Korea and Japan, China, Malaysia, actually not Japan, that's a private company, but all the others are public companies that are concerned with their obligations that they have made under the Paris Agreement. They have to lower their emissions, and they do not have unlimited ways and options to do that. And LNG is one of the things they're doing to meet their climate obligations. So when I hear people say we should send LNG to those places that are desperate to lower their emissions because we're going to, create more natural gas, I think we have to be more global in our thinking. We have to realize that these countries, they have to get that natural gas because otherwise they're burning, less efficient forms of electricity. That may get better. There's some high-tech coal technology out there, and hopefully we have that too in the mix. But they also want natural gas, and they're going to get it from somewhere. I think it could be from the Montney. It's some of the cleanest natural gas in the ground. When it comes up, it's almost free of impurities and carbon dioxide. It doesn't have a lot of that junk in it, just because we've got the luck of the draw in geology terms. Most natural gas in the world, you pull it out of the ground, and it's full of all sorts of gunk. And they have to clean it. That's expensive. So we got it pretty good here. We can share it with others. I'm proud of that as a Canadian, that we can do that.
Stewart, another generator of greenhouse gas, and I think you might have commented on this, is the fact that Canada is a major food producer for the whole planet. And of course that takes energy.
Oh, it does. A big energy. I mean, you think if you're a farmer, they've had a terrible time on the prairies this year, as you know, getting their crops in, but you get your harvest in, your grain, you have to dry it. How do you dry it? Well, there's farmers who use coal. There's a lot who use natural gas dryers. And if you don't dry it, imagine, you got some freshly harvested grain sitting there. It's all wet over winter. What's going to happen? Can't let that happen. So they dry it. And energy costs are big for them. And of course, they have to move their vehicles around. And maybe over time, those farm vehicles, maybe more of them will be, plug-in EVs. And that, I haven't seen too much of it. It's harder to do with the high horsepower engines. They tend to need, the intense chemical energy sources that hydrocarbons represent. But I think a transition there could be that we get more into LNG vehicles, because that's not simple to do, but definitely the technology is there. So, I think farmers over time, who always are underappreciated, just like, you plug something into the wall, you're not thinking about where it comes from, you're not thinking about where your food's coming from. And so, give farmers a thought, because they are struggling out there, the costs are going up, and it's super important that they be able to supply our food.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, one of the arguments against both LNG and expanding the oil pipeline to Burnaby has been extra tanker traffic. How dangerous are those tankers to our ecology?
Well, that is a question I'm thinking about a lot right now, because I am preparing a submission to the National Energy Board's process as an intervener. They're looking at the maritime safety side. They're particularly concerned about could there be an impact on killer whales? So we all want killer whales to do well. So what's the deal there? I've been looking at this. We did a study at ResourceWorks earlier this year. We called it the Citizen's Guide to Tanker Safety and Spill Response. We looked at every angle of that, and we found that the risk of a spill is going to be very slightly elevated, but quite extremely unlikely. Something like once every 2,000 years is the chance of a major oil spill. And I don't think anyone believes that the pipeline expansion is going to last for 2,000 years. The chances of there being, a problem. But the thing is, we don't want a problem at all. And that's why the safety regime they put in place is so many layers. They have 3 tugboats. I think a lot of people are familiar with this, but lately I've been looking at an app called Marine Traffic. You can get it for any Android phone or iPhone, and it lets you, if you're into this stuff, you can see where ships are in the world, because every ship out there pretty much has got what they call an AIS transmitter that transmits the position of the ship every, I think, few seconds, so you can see the whole fleet, and they know what kind of ship is transmitting. And so on these maps, you can say, show me all the oil tankers, and you can see them all. And over the last year, I've been sharing some of those maps in Twitter. If you go to my Twitter account, which is S like Stewart, J like John, Muir, S-J Muir, M-U-I-R, you'll see that just in the past few days, I tweeted the top 25 maps that people liked, the ones that got the most retweets. Now, I know probably only 20% of the population is into Twitter, so for 80% of you, maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, but those who do, you can see I've got the top 25 tweets from the last year of these maps. And I had a lot of fun doing that. You know, the interest level, I think, is something I was surprised at. I think the reason it's so interesting to us is it's a visualization that you can't argue with. You know, the truth is that you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of oil tankers out there on the world's oceans right now, this minute, safely transporting products like crude oil around the world. And, you know, I think for a lot of people, you say, well, if there's thousands of them happening safely and we're not hearing about accidents, maybe we can add one more a day on the west coast of Canada and it's not that big a deal. That's what I think a lot of people realize when they see these maps.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir when we come back.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead zinc silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineered gold mine in the Atlan district of northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, I know carbon taxes are probably not your favorite form of funding the government. The Trudeau government says the 4 provinces that didn't have carbon taxes will have carbon taxes imposed, but the citizens there will get a carbon tax rebate. What about the citizens in provinces that have had carbon taxes? BC was probably one of the first jurisdictions in the world to have one. Will we get to see rebates, and will we get rebates for the 10 years we've been paying a carbon tax, which apparently was not revenue neutral at all?
Jim Goddard, you are a troublemaker.
Sorry.
Yes. I think people are going to be, they're hearing that question. Hey, yeah, 10 years of paying the carbon tax in BC. What about my rebate? But I don't think that's going to happen. No, there's no way that's going to happen. But, you know, the backstop, which is the device, the mechanism that will apply to the provinces that don't put in their own carbon tax, that's what you're talking about, the backstop, which will result in rebates. I think not everyone will see a rebate, and it will, I think, in Ottawa's eyes, it will, you know, cushion the blow of there being an extra a few cents on a liter of gasoline, and those who are most burdened by that cost will be the ones to be most lenient of the burden of it by the rebate. So, you know, the idea is a sound one. It's a good one. You know, I think carbon pricing, it's maybe a little volatile as a political issue. There's a few, you know, the conservative movement across Canada has clearly identified it as something that they think their voter base is not happy with, and they're going to fight against it. And I think the Liberals are saying, hey, our base, they want this. They want to be doing something responsible for the environment, and this is what we've chosen. You know, on a lot of these issues, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think, okay, if you're going to do a carbon tax, great, but let's be careful not to think that it's the ultimate solution that's for, you know, all the problems, because it really isn't. I think, yeah, okay, put the carbon tax in, but we got to make sure we're innovating in a lot of other areas. You know, I think people should be encouraged, if they've got some old clunker of a furnace in their basement, I mean, you're just throwing your money away if you're doing that. You should go on, if you need to get a bank loan, you're probably still saving money if you could replace that, because you're using less natural gas and you're paying less gas tax and so on. So there's all these things that we can do that are personal, and then things that industry can do. You know, also getting more up-to-date equipment if they have the ability to replace it. But one thing we got to watch is that we have mechanisms in place, and we do, that prevents Canadian industry from just relocating to places that don't have a carbon tax. I mean, if you can just say, let's up and leave my manufacturing business that uses a lot of energy, put it down in Washington State where I don't pay that, or Idaho or someplace, you know, that's kind of bad news if that's the reason that you move. So I think very, very important that the governments are watching that issue, because that form of carbon leakage is bad for the economy, obviously.
Is there such a thing as too much solar energy?
Well, they're finding out in Japan right now, in Kyushu, the island of Kyushu, which is one of the I think, southernmost island of Japan. So it's got more exposure to the sunshine. Good place for solar panels. They've been installing a lot, especially since the Fukushima nuclear accident a few years back. Remember that? They shut down all of the nuclear generating stations in Japan, all of them, because they were afraid. And now they've reviewed this. They're starting to turn on some of them. But in the meantime, what they did was down in Kyushu, they put in a lot of solar panels, and they were powering some of the economy that way. But now they're finding that they've actually got too much of a good thing. It doesn't fit well into the existing distribution network, and they're looking at actually decreasing the amount of electricity they generate from solar, which you might think is the wrong way to go. On the other hand, nuclear power is carbon free. Not a lot of environmentalists like it for other reasons, but it's actually a very climate friendly way of creating energy, and it's also totally reliable. The plants that produce electricity, they don't switch off for the time of the day when it's dark like solar panels do. They don't have that storage problem, which technology is evolving to fix. But for now, got this issue. So it's interesting. I was really surprised. It was a gentleman I was talking to from Japan just last week, who was here for the celebration for LNG Canada, and I got talking with him about energy things, and he was telling me about Kyushu, and I was quite surprised and looked it up. So if you look that up, you'll see that this is so. And I don't think it's an argument for not having solar, but it's drawing our attention to some of the risks that can occur when you're using these systems.
What happens with the excess solar? Is it causing power surges, that kind of thing?
Well, yes. It's uneven in the system. The system is designed, it wasn't designed originally to have solar into it. They have to, find ways to discharge it. I was out at a solar facility on the prairies, recently, a couple of years ago, went up on the roof of a large public building and had a look at this up close, and, there was this big set of what looked like fans, to the side. It wasn't just solar panels. And I said, well, what are those for? And they said, those are for discharging the energy that we don't need if we're producing too much for our building. So they actually have that that's just a regular problem that happens all the time. They have to be able to discharge the heat that they collected through these fans. So it's just really just blown out into the atmosphere. So it's not always efficient. I mean, they designed for it, and it's fine, but not 100% efficient. And again, technology evolves over time, and all these issues get addressed better.
Of course, I'm thinking that excess heat could be used to heat solar greenhouses growing, the pot plants that we're short of, apparently.
Well, what's happening with some of these new cannabis grow operations in Canada is they are setting up their own small electricity generation from natural gas, which is very inexpensive. It's like 4 cents kilowatt hour compared to something quite a bit more, maybe 12 cents or more for electricity. So, it's a third the cost, and they just turn them on. They're totally reliable. As long as they have the natural gas supplied, they can operate them at any time the way that they like to. So, definitely, I'm sure people who run these greenhouses would be open to any way that would save them money. But I don't think right now there's a cheaper way than natural gas, which is going to drive any decision making.
Stewart, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jim. Great to be on the show again.
My guest has been Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the ResourceWorks Society. His website, resourceworks.com. His Twitter handle, SJMuir.
That's it.
Thanks again. If you have any questions for Stewart or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. You can find us on Twitter @HowStreet. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.